My father's voice cracked through the phone like a cheap radio, begging me to meet him alone after 10 years of silence, 10 years of birthday cards with no return address, and voicemails I deleted without listening. I laughed bitterly, thinking, what kind of man grovels for a reunion in a dive bar's parking lot? But I went. Something in his voice raw, desperate, not the cold detachment I remembered pulled me to that rundown Italian joint on the edge of town. The neon sign flickered Ristorante as I parked my beat-up Honda, my heart thudding like it knew something I didn't. I was 26, too old to care about his apologies, too young to let go of the ache he'd left behind. The restaurant smelled of garlic and regret. Dim lights hung over checkered tablecloths, and the clink of glasses felt too cheerful for what was coming. There he was, in the corner, hunched over a table like a man carrying a decade's worth of mistakes. His hair was grayer than I remembered, his hands fidgeting with a crumpled photo. I froze. That photo, it was me, age 6, blowing out candles at a birthday party he'd actually shown up to. My throat tightened. "Ellie," he said, standing too fast, knocking his water glass. It didn't break, but it might as well have. His eyes were wet, not with tears, but with something heavier, shame. "Maybe? You came." I slid into the booth, keeping my purse on my lap like a shield. "You said it was important, so talk." He exhaled, shaky, and pushed the photo toward me. "I kept this. All these years." His voice was low, like he was afraid the words would break if he spoke too loud. "I know I don't deserve this. You, sitting here." I didn't touch the photo. 10 years, Dad. 10 years of nothing but a card every July. "Why now?" He looked down, hands twisting. "I'm sick. Ellie. Real sick. Doctors say maybe 6 months, maybe less." The words hit like a punch I didn't see coming. I wanted to laugh, to call it a lie, but his eyes, those tired, sunken eyes, told me it was true. I leaned back, crossing my arms. "So you want forgiveness, a clean slate before you check out?" "No," he said quickly. "I want to make it right, or try. I owe you that." I snorted, bitterness rising like bile. "You owe me a childhood. You owe me a dad who didn't walk out when I was 12 because life got too hard." He winced, and for a second, I felt a twisted satisfaction. But then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small notebook, its pages worn and yellowed. "This," he said, sliding it across the table, "is everything I couldn't say." I stared at it, my fingers itching to grab it, but my pride screaming to walk away. "What's this supposed to be, your diary?" "It's for you," he said. "Letters. Every year, every birthday. Every time I wanted to call but knew you'd hang up." I opened it, despite myself. The first page was dated July 17th, 2015, my 13th birthday. "Dear Ellie, I'm sorry I wasn't there today. I wanted to be. I was too ashamed to face you after leaving." The handwriting was shaky, like he'd written it with a bottle in his other hand. Page after page, year after year. The same thing: apologies, regrets, promises he never kept. My eyes stung, but I wouldn't let him see me cry. "Why didn't you send them?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't think you'd want to hear from me," he said. "I thought, maybe you were better off without me dragging you down." I laughed, sharp and hollow. "Better off I spent years thinking I wasn't enough, that I drove you away." His face crumpled. "Ellie, no. It was never you. It was me. I was a coward. Your mom, she was so strong, and I couldn't handle it. The bills, the fights, the pressure. I ran. I wanted to scream, to throw the notebook at him, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the way his hands shook, or the way he looked at me like I was the only thing keeping him tethered to the world. I flipped through the notebook again, landing on a page from last year. "I saw you at the community college graduation. You didn't see me. You looked so proud. Ellie, I'm so proud. You were there." My voice cracked. I hated that it did. He nodded. "In the back, I didn't want to ruin your day. I didn't know what to feel: anger, betrayal, or something softer I wasn't ready to name. So what now you're dying and you want me to play happy family? No, he said, I want you to know I loved you. Always. Even when I was too broken to show it. The waiter came by, oblivious to the weight of the moment, asking if we wanted dessert. I waved him off. My eyes locked on Dad. You don't get to just drop this on me and expect me to fix you. I don't, he said, I needed you to know before it's too late. We sat in silence, the restaurant's hum fading into the background. I thought about the years I'd spent hating him, the nights I'd cried myself to sleep, the times I'd scanned crowds for his face, and now here he was, smaller than I remembered, asking for something I wasn't sure I could give. I need time, I said finally, understanding. I can't do this tonight. He nodded, like he'd expected it. I'll be here. If you want to talk again. I left the notebook on the table, but as I walked out, I grabbed it, shoving it into my purse. The night air was cold, and I sat in my car, staring at the restaurant's flickering sign. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, holding the notebook like it was a grenade. The next few weeks were a blur. I didn't call him, but I read the notebook. Every page. Some nights, I'd slam it shut, furious at his excuses. Other nights, I'd linger on his words, wondering if I'd misjudged him. He wasn't a monster, just a man who'd failed, spectacularly, and knew it. One evening, I found myself back at the restaurant, not because I forgave him, but because I needed answers. He was there. Same table, same nervous look. You came back, he said, almost disbelieving. I'm not here to make you feel better, I said, sitting down. I'm here because I deserve to know why. And so, he told me about the drinking that started after Mom's cancer diagnosis, about the debt that piled up, about the shame that made him think leaving was kinder than staying. It wasn't an excuse, but it was an explanation. And for the first time, I saw him not as the villain of my story, but as a man who'd been drowning and didn't know how to ask for help. We met again and again. Each time, I learned a little more. He'd been sober for 5 years. He'd worked odd jobs, trying to send those birthday cards with what little he had. He'd watched me from afar, too afraid to step back into my life. It didn't erase the pain, but it chipped away at the anger. One night, he brought a box of old photos of me as a kid, him teaching me to ride a bike, us at the zoo. I thought you might want these, he said. I took them, not because I was ready to forgive, but because they were proof that, for a moment, we'd been happy. Months passed. His health worsened. I visited him in the hospital, where the beeping machines and sterile walls made our talks feel more urgent. One day, he grabbed my hand, his grip weak but firm. Ellie, I'm sorry for everything. You don't have to forgive me, but I need you to know I love you. I squeezed his hand back. I know, I said, and I did. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, but it was something. He died 3 weeks later. I was there, holding that same notebook, reading him the letter he'd written for my 21st birthday. He smiled, faint but real, and then he was gone. I kept the notebook. I keep it still. Some days I hate him for what he took from me. Other days I'm grateful for those last months, for the chance to see him as human. Life isn't a movie. There's no neat resolution, no perfect ending. But there's truth, and sometimes that's enough. What would you have done? Would you have met him, given him that chance to explain, or walked away for good? Share your thoughts. There's no right answer, only the messy truth of what it means to be human.